Pain announced itself before memory did, a dull throbbing at his ribs that pulsed in time with something mechanical, a humming perhaps, or the heartbeat of a machine too elegant for Earth. The air smelled too clean, sterile, artificial, like someone had filtered all the earth out of it. He blinked once. A soft light bloomed overhead, shifting slowly through cool shades of blue as if trying to avoid waking him too rudely. Polite lighting, definitely not a military hospital. Then a voice, not quite robotic, not quite human, spoke somewhere above his head. Vitals stable, neurological responses within tolerance, muscle fiber regeneration at 62%, disappointing. He opened his mouth to respond, but only a croak escaped. The ceiling blinked at him, or maybe he imagined that, movement in his periphery. A figure stepped into view. Tall, slender, dressed in slate-colored robes that shimmered faintly in the light. Her skin was almost translucent, her features sharp but symmetrical, humanoid but unmistakably alien. Long black hair was drawn back into a tight braid, and her ears extended in elegant arcs from the sides of her head, tapering like delicate leaves. She looked down at him with the expression of someone observing a plant that might grow into something tolerable if it stopped drooping so much. "Human male," she said flatly, "you are awake." He swallowed. "Yeah, that's me, the awake human male." He winced. "I don't suppose there's a nurse on duty with a name shorter than a dental record." She stared at him for a beat. "I am designated Verschalatzi in formal context." He blinked. "But you may call me V." See, already things are looking up. He tried to shift, but his body betrayed him with a yelp of pain. "Okay, maybe sideways." V consulted a hovering display that materialized near her wrist. "Your injuries include 3 fractured ribs, a dislocated shoulder, 2 lacerations to the left femoral region, and moderate cranial trauma. Most of your internal functions have been stabilized, but your skeletal repair has been slow. I suspect noncompliance." "Noncompliance? I've been unconscious." Her head tilted. "Precisely. Unconsciousness is no excuse for biological laziness." "Well, I'll try to do better next time I'm near fatally wounded." She gave a slow blink, which he interpreted as the Celari version of an eye roll. Then wordlessly she tapped something on the hovering display. A soft hiss near his neck followed, and warmth surged through his chest. "Pain suppressant and tissue accelerator," she said. "Mild euphoria may occur. Do not mistake this for emotional progress." He laughed, or tried to. It came out like a wheeze wrapped in sarcasm. "You're a riot, V." "I do not cause riots." He grinned. "We'll work on your idioms." She remained by his side longer than necessary. At first, he thought it was because she was monitoring his reaction to the drugs. But even after the vitals stabilized and the shimmer display dissolved, she remained still, watching. "Do you usually loom like this?" he asked. "Or am I just lucky?" "I am assessing your recovery." "For how long?" "As long as it takes." "Well, that's comforting, though I usually prefer my nurses slightly more cheerful." Her eyes narrowed ever so slightly. "You are conscious. That is preferable to the alternative." "So many compliments. I feel like we're bonding." She didn't answer. Instead, she turned and walked away in those smooth, gliding steps that made it look like her feet barely touched the floor. As she reached the doorway, she paused. "I will return shortly," she said. "Can't wait," he muttered, but she was already gone. He lay back, staring at the shifting lights above. His body felt like it had been assembled out of spare parts and held together with regret. Still, he was alive. Somewhere, that counted for something. The next time she came in, he was ready. "Hey, V," he said brightly. "Guess what? I remembered my name. It's Leo." She nodded. "Leo, short for Leonis." "No, just Leo, like the lion. King of the well, not much right now." "I will update your file." "Appreciate that. Can you also add extremely handsome and strangely resilient under attributes?" Her expression didn't change. "I do not embellish medical records." He sighed. "Tough crowd." V administered another dose of something, adjusted the temperature of the room to what he assumed was human cozy, and checked the neural interface on the back of his neck. All in silence, all with the same detached grace. You ever smile, V? I was not programmed to. He stared. Wait, are you a synth? No. Oh, so you choose to be this serious. That's worse. A twitch at the corner of her lips, barely perceptible, but he saw it. And he smiled like a man who'd found an oasis in a desert of sarcasm. For the next few days, or cycles, or whatever unit the Celari used to measure time, V was his only consistent company. Other medical staff floated in and out, murmuring in soft, clicking tones. Machines clicked and whirred and occasionally emitted pleasant harp noises when something went well. Leo, for his part, told V stories. He told her about how he ended up in the military, about his time as a shuttle mechanic before the war, about how he once installed a propulsion stabilizer backwards and nearly sent a diplomatic envoy to Saturn by mistake. She listened, always listened. Sometimes when he said something truly ridiculous, her ears twitched. Once he faked being asleep just to see what she'd do. She stood at the foot of his bed for 6 whole minutes, unmoving, watching. It was equal parts flattering and unnerving. When he opened one eye and caught her, she didn't flinch. I was monitoring your respiration, she said. Sure you were. She walked away without a word, but her ears twitched twice. By the end of the week, he could sit up without swearing. Mostly. V didn't comment on his progress, but he noticed the room got slightly warmer, the food slightly more familiar. One morning, the medical console played a garbled version of Earth Jazz. He pointed at it. V, did you? I do not know how that audio file was included. He raised an eyebrow. So it just randomly decided to play Blue Moon, in a facility that doesn't even have moons. No comment. I'm starting to think you like me. She didn't answer, but she didn't deny it either. Leo's recovery continued at a pace that could generously be described as uninspiring, at least according to V's regular, emotionless updates. Your cellular regeneration remains at 68% efficiency. Muscular coordination suboptimal. Emotional output remains high. She said the last part like it was a contaminant. He grinned. Well, I was voted most emotionally volatile in basic training, tied with a guy who cried during toaster commercials. She didn't blink. Do toasters often induce sadness in humans? Only the tragic ones, he said, nodding solemnly. Like when the toast gets stuck and burns. It's a metaphor for society. She scanned her tablet. I have noted your sensitivity to breakfast appliances. Do you ever laugh? I have issued auditory exhalations when required. So no. That earned him a slight pause. It was a victory in their slow, bizarre game of one-sided charm. Leo knew she wasn't meant to be entertaining. She was built, or trained, or bio-optimized, or whatever the Celari did, for competence. But sometimes, when he told stories about Earth that veered dangerously into nonsense, her ears twitched just enough to let him know she was listening more closely than her stillness suggested. You know, he said one afternoon while struggling to lift a zero-gravity dumbbell shaped like a floating jellyfish, if you wanted to impress me, you could always pretend I'm getting stronger. You are not. Brutal. You ever considered a career in morale support? I am already doing more than required. That was true. She stayed longer than any other staff member, while others hovered in and out, gliding in with silvery trays of nutrient mush or recalibrating the biosensors embedded in his mattress. V remained. Quiet, steady, ever-present. He started testing her, first by humming Earth tunes under his breath to see if she'd recognize them. She didn't. Then by switching the language of his console to Spanish, which led to a 20-minute misunderstanding where she thought he was requesting live alpacas. And then most daringly he drew a smiley face on one of her diagnostic tools using food paste. It was a bad smiley face, lopsided and slightly unsettling. She looked at it, then looked at him, then turned the device off. I am reporting you for sabotage, she said. Tell them it was an emotional outburst. They will believe that. Despite her stoicism, something was changing. The room began to feel less like a chamber of isolation and more like a reluctant friendship's awkward staging ground. She started answering his questions with more than one-word responses. When he asked about Selari culture, she explained that the long ears were sensitive to emotional frequency. "We perceive intent before words," she said. "That's cheating," he said. "So when I think something stupid, like how your robes look like a futuristic bathrobe, you feel that." "Yes, you've been very patient. I have filed several internal complaints. See, that's friendship." The real surprise came when he asked about her off-duty hours. "I don't require downtime," she replied. "Come on, no hobbies, no alien soap operas." She blinked. "Soap? Never mind, but surely you have something, art, dance, extreme hoverboarding." Her head tilted. "I occasionally cultivate virtual gardens." He sat up straighter. "Now we're getting somewhere. What kind of gardens?" "Integrative bonsai." He stared at her. "What?" "That is the most V answer I could have imagined. They require precise calibration. When improperly balanced, they explode." "Of course they do." Later that cycle, she brought a tiny projection device into his room. "Visual stimulation aids human cognitive recovery," she said, activating the emitter. A tree appeared at the foot of his bed. It hovered in the air, leaves shimmering in shades of violet and green, its roots curling inward on themselves like clenched fingers. It pulsed with an inner light. "This one is called T-Caril. It only blooms when exposed to shared consciousness." Translation: it requires connection. Leo watched it flicker. The tree pulsed once, then slowly unfolded a single blossom. "Is it reacting to us?" V said nothing. Her eyes were on the tree. "Are we bonding, V? I will deactivate the simulation now. You can't just shut off emotional progress." "I can, actually." He laughed. "Do you ever just sit and admire the absurdity of this situation? I treat an injured human male prone to flirtation, emotional outbursts, and unprompted musical performances. Absurdity is constant." "Exactly. And yet here we are. Maybe fate wants us to be weird together." "I do not believe in fate." "Well," he said, watching the little blossom float gently to the ground, "that makes one of us." They fell into a rhythm after that. V administered treatments. Leo tested boundaries. He discovered she hated being asked about hypothetical scenarios. "Would you rather fight 100 duck-sized robots or one robot-sized duck?" Earned him 3 full minutes of silence and a warning about abusing neural stimulants. But when he asked real things, about her home, her species, her childhood, she became evasive. Not rude, just quiet. Like the answers weren't hers to share, or maybe she'd forgotten how to put them into words anyone else could understand. One evening, as the chamber lights dimmed into something approximating twilight, he caught her staring again. Not the professional, distant gaze she gave when checking vitals. This one was softer, curious. "You okay?" he asked. "I was considering your resilience." "Yeah, I'm stubborn like that." "No, your ability to remain emotionally active, despite injury, despite displacement. It's how I stay alive." "It is inefficient." He shrugged. "It's human." She paused. "Your kind's capacity for self-deception is remarkable." "Thank you." They sat in silence for a while. The hovering bonsai flickered quietly beside them. "I will be reassigned soon," she said, as if commenting on the weather. His breath caught. "Oh, my duty to you is nearly complete." "Though," she looked at him, "you appear distressed." "No. I mean, yeah, a little. I've grown accustomed to your aggressively clinical bedside manner. I could provide a referral." He chuckled. "I don't want another nurse, V. That is not within protocol. I've never been good with protocol." She stood. "I know." Her fingers lingered near the edge of his bed frame for a second too long before she turned and walked out. The room felt colder when she left, colder than he remembered. Even the bonsai dimmed. He sighed, then looked at the tree. "Exploding gardens and deadpan nurses," he muttered. "Yep, definitely falling for her." The tree pulsed once, mockingly. The smell was the first thing he noticed, something crisp, almost floral, drifting in through the air vents. It didn't belong to any medical-grade sterilizer he recognized, which was why he immediately suspected sabotage. "V," Leo called, sitting upright with the kind of heroic effort that made his recently regenerated ribs complain. "Am I being perfumed?" She appeared in the doorway with her usual quiet grace, the shimmer of her uniform catching the overhead light just enough to make her look vaguely supernatural, or at least professionally unsettling. "There is a new atmospheric calibration for cross-species comfort optimization," she replied. "Smells like someone sprayed alien lavender in here. It is derived from selkai, a soothing pollen used in Celari childhood conditioning chambers. So I'm being tucked in like a space baby. If that helps you remain seated, then yes." He grinned. "Does it come with lullaby?" When they returned to the room, someone was already inside. The new figure stood beside the pod, tall and even more elaborately dressed than V, robes layered in iridescent patterns, and facial markings like silver tattoos along their temple. They regarded Leo with a calm intensity that could have boiled water. "I am Dr. Selin Thar, overseer of this ward." Leo offered a wave. Leo, human, patient, devotee of sarcasm. Thar turned to V. "Your continued proximity to this individual exceeds acceptable caregiver parameters." Leo blinked. "Well, that's a fun greeting." V's tone was even. "I am fulfilling my responsibilities." "You have been observed deviating from standard interaction protocol." Leo frowned. "Is this about the bonsai tree? Because if so, I'm innocent." Thar ignored him. "You will be reassigned, V." "No." The word was soft but unmistakable. Thar's brows rose. "Repeat that." "I request continued assignment." "That is not standard." "I will make a formal petition." Leo watched this unfold like a kid at a very awkward family dinner. "Should I leave?" "No," said V. "Yes," said Thar. They stared at each other in clinical silence. "I'll just lie down," Leo said, backing toward the bed. "Pretend I'm unconscious, again." Thar turned and left without another word. Leo waited until the door closed. Suho, that was chill. V remained standing, still as stone, but her hands, usually folded or steady, were clenched. "Are you in trouble?" "I will submit the appropriate paperwork." "That's not what I asked." Her jaw tightened. "You are not my responsibility." He froze, then laughed. "Wow, harsh." She turned to him, eyes unreadable. "You are not my only responsibility." He looked at her for a long moment, then sat back on the edge of the bed. "I don't know what that means, V." "It means I have stayed too long." He nodded. "And yet here you are." She didn't respond. She turned to go, then stopped. "The bonsai you saw," she said without turning, "it bloomed." "I saw it." "That only happens when Celari neural signatures align." "Sounds serious." "It is." Then she left. Leo stared at the closed door for a long time. Then he looked at the floating tree, which now had 2 blossoms. "Great," he muttered. "Now the plants are in on it." He wasn't allowed to leave the room anymore. Not officially. Something about emotional contamination of caregiver protocol and unauthorized bonsai bonding. Leo had heard stranger phrases in military briefings, but this was the first time one came with floral consequences. He stared at the floating bonsai, which now boasted not 2 but 3 blossoms, pulsing softly with bioluminescent smugness. It hovered at the edge of the console like a tiny alien witness to his slowly unraveling patience. "You're enjoying this," he said to it. "You and your blooming judgment." The door slid open with its usual whisper, and he sat up straighter than usual, already grinning. But it was V. The figure who entered wore the same medical uniform, but without the subtle grace V moved with. The replacement nurse was broad-shouldered, green-skinned, and shaped like someone had crossbred a refrigerator with a grizzly bear. His voice rumbled like tectonic plates apologizing. "I am Dho Lek. I will monitor you now." Leo blinked. "I miss V." "She has been reassigned." "To where?" "Undisclosed. You will not ask again." Leo smiled, slow and sharp. Sure, but I'll definitely ask again later. D.A. Cholek took a seat beside the console and pulled out a device the size of a hoverbike battery. He plugged it into Leo's neural port with all the tenderness of someone rewiring a broken vending machine. Leo flinched. That was assertive. You are stable, minor irritants only. Irritants being what? Emotional dependency, unresolved romantic tension. D.A. Cholek didn't respond. He just handed Leo a bland, nutritional wafer and resumed silence. Over the next few hours, Leo tried everything: jokes, questions, philosophical musings on the ethics of artificial gravity. D.A. Cholek gave him nothing. No twitch, no sigh, not even a passive-aggressive ear flick. By the time evening dimmed the lights to imitation sunset, Leo was nearly climbing the walls out of sheer boredom and unresolved feelings. When he finally drifted into a fitful sleep, he dreamed of two things. V, standing at the foot of his bed with her fingers folded like she wanted to say something but couldn't, and the bonsai tree, whispering secrets in a language made of petals and glows. The next morning he woke to find the bonsai missing. That was the final straw. He staged a protest. It wasn't a grand protest. It mostly involved throwing his nutritional wafers across the room and loudly demanding a lawyer he didn't have. D.A. Cholek watched without expression. You can't just take the tree, man. It is under quarantine. It's a floating plant, not a biohazard. It reacted to emotional fusion. It must be studied. You mean it bloomed when V and I got emotionally compromised? That's called chemistry. D.A. Cholek blinked. That term is imprecise. Leo threw another wafer. So's your bedside manner. That night when the hallway went quiet and the lights dimmed into the soft hum of night mode, Leo did something monumentally stupid. He escaped. It wasn't elegant. The neural port in his wrist still sparked if he moved too quickly, and the pain in his side hadn't entirely forgiven him for the whole shrapnel explosion thing. But he knew how to override low-level security doors. And he knew exactly where he wanted to go. The Arboretum. It was harder to find without V leading the way. Half the corridors looked identical, and the station's guidance system kept suggesting destinations like Meditation Pool 6 and Cryo Archive for Discarded Memories, which sounded like either a spa or a very sad art installation. Eventually, he found the chamber. The door was already cracked open. Inside, V sat cross-legged beside the bonsai tree, which now floated lazily above a small pool of starlight-infused water. Her back was to him. She didn't turn when he stepped inside. I broke several rules to get here, he said quietly. I am aware. D.A. Cholek says you've been reassigned. That is true. I don't like D.A. Cholek. He is very efficient. He's like a sentient wall. A wall that feeds me cardboard and ignores my jokes. V remained still. He stepped closer. Why did you leave? I was instructed to. That's not what I asked. She turned then slowly. Her eyes met his and something passed between them, too quick for thought, too soft for words. I was instructed to, she repeated, because they observed attachment that exceeded regulation. Well, you did get me emotionally addicted to floating bonsai. Her mouth quirked, barely, but it was enough. I thought you were gone, he said, and I didn't know what to do with that. I thought I would forget your voice after 2 cycles, she said softly. I did not. He sat beside her, closer than protocol allowed. V, I don't know how any of this works. Your people, your culture, your incredibly strict nurse ethics. But I do know that I feel something when I'm near you, something that doesn't go away when I leave the room. She looked down at the pool. The bonsai reflected on the surface, its blossoms pulsing with slow light. I am Celari. We are not trained for this. Neither am I. I'm trained to fix shuttle engines and make bad jokes under pressure. He reached for her hand. She didn't pull away. I requested a field reassignment, she said after a moment. One that would take me off this station. Leo's heart stuttered. Oh, I was going to leave, until the bonsai bloomed again, without you in the room. He blinked. So what does that mean? She looked at him, her expression unreadable, but her hand was still in his. "It means something remains," she said, "even in absence." He swallowed. "That's poetic." "It is inefficient." "Yeah," he smiled. "But it's us." Above them the bonsai bloomed again. 5 blossoms now. And counting. The ship was small, barely larger than a cargo hauler, and packed with equipment Leo had been warned not to touch. Naturally, he touched everything within the first hour. "Please do not tamper with the environmental stabilizers," V said for the 4th time, not looking up from the console. "I'm just seeing what this button does. It ejects waste into space." "I'm waste emotionally, so technically." "Stop." He grinned, leaned back in the co-pilot's chair, and looked out the viewport. Stars slid past in brilliant silence, bending slightly at the edges from the ship's localized warp drive. It was beautiful. It was absurd. He was in love with a long-eared alien nurse on a medical mission in deep space. And somehow, he was allowed to be here. Officially, Leo had been reclassified as a civilian adjunct with technical utility and emotional stabilization benefits. In other words, a tolerated mechanic with good jokes. V had submitted 14 formal petitions, 6 bureaucratic appeals, and 1 strongly worded quantum logic argument to secure his presence. It had worked. He had been given a jumpsuit 2 sizes too big and a diagnostic wrench that beeped judgmentally at him. He didn't care. He was where he wanted to be. Their mission was straightforward, which in Celari terms meant mildly perilous. Respond to a distress signal from a mining outpost orbiting a fractured planetoid in the Delta Verge. Possible biological exposure. Likely injuries. Unlikely survivors. "So, fun vacation spot," Leo said, strapping himself in as the ship angled into descent. "There may be infected organisms," V replied, calibrating a plasma purifier with her usual casual precision. "You mean zombies?" "I mean aggressive metabolic collapse due to bioweapon residue." "Still sound like zombies." She handed him a filtration mask. "Do not remove this under any circumstances." He examined it. "Does it come in any color besides impending doom gray?" "No." "Classic." The outpost was half collapsed, its upper towers tilted at impossible angles, held together by flickering gravity fields. Inside, the air was dense with particles that shimmered like microscopic confetti. It would have been beautiful if not for the ominous silence. They moved together through the wreckage, V scanning with a multispectrum field emitter, Leo carrying the medstasis unit and trying not to fall over cables. They found 3 survivors in various states of distress. One had a broken arm, one was in toxic shock, and one had decided clothing was optional in a crisis. Leo averted his eyes, focused on applying the bandages, and tried not to ask questions. V worked fast, methodical, nearly glowing in her element. Watching her, Leo felt something click into place. Not awe, not infatuation, but something deeper. She wasn't just a healer. She was a protector, not of him, of everyone. As they evacuated the last patient, the floor beneath them gave way. V pushed Leo aside just before the panel cracked, and she dropped fast into the lower level of the structure. "VAE!" he shouted, scrambling to the edge. She landed hard, rolled, and immediately tried to stand. "Minor injury," she called up. "I'm coming down there." "That is not advisable." "Since when have I ever done the advisable thing?" He lowered himself clumsily, falling the last 2 meters with a grunt. The chamber they'd landed in pulsed with sickly green light. At the center, a spore mass the size of a hover truck writhed with slow life, tendrils twitching at their presence. "Oh good," Leo said, "a space fungus, just what I wanted for dinner. It's responding to neural frequencies." "Mine. Mine. Because of your ears." "No, because of my exposure." The fungus began to tremble. Leo reached for her hand. "Are you saying you're infected?" "No, I am saying it recognizes empathy." He stared at her. "That's weirdly wholesome and terrifying." The fungus shuddered again, and a long, spiny growth lunged toward them. V activated a pulse shield and shoved him behind her. It's feeding off fear. Fantastic, great. Good thing I'm made entirely of calm, rational, oh my god its coming closer. She placed her hand on his chest. Breathe. You breathe. I am. Somewhere between panic and hyperventilation, he locked eyes with her. She wasn't afraid. Her face was calm, her posture grounded. She was doing what she'd always done, healing through presence, through stillness. He matched her breath. Slowly. The fungus quivered, recoiled. It's working, he whispered. You're a space therapist. She didn't smile, but her eyes sparkled. You contribute emotional entropy. I'll take that as a compliment. Together, they held their ground. After a long, agonizing minute, the spore mass pulsed one final time, then slumped. Its glow dimmed. The tendrils withdrew. When they climbed out, covered in dust and unresolved trauma, the rescue team was waiting. They didn't ask questions. Celari rarely did. Back on the ship, Leo sat on the edge of the medbed while V tended to a scrape on his arm. You saved my life, he said. You're statistically likely to require saving again. True, but you didn't have to. She applied a final sealant and looked up. I did. He met her eyes. You're not just trained to heal. No, you stayed with me long after you had to. Yes. Why? She hesitated. Then, for the first time, she touched her fingers to his forehead. Not a clinical gesture, but something gentle. Celari intimacy. He felt her thoughts like a whisper through his skin. Because something about you quiets the noise, she thought. And I want to hear what comes next.